Hi everyone, my name is Sydney Hoffman, and this is my exploratory presentation on the medieval times. So starting off, what exactly are the medieval times? So the medieval times, medieval era, Middle Ages, Dark Ages, whatever you care to call it, is sort of between the 5th and 15th century. Began around the 476 AD after a power loss of the Roman emperor. And this started the Middle Ages, which lasted about 1,000 years, ending in 1400, 1450. And I thought it would be cool to mention this little guy here. His name is Charlemagne. He founded the Holy Roman Empire, which stimulated European economic and political life. He also fostered the cultural revival known as the, oh my goodness, how do I pronounce that? Carolingian Renaissance. In contrast to the general decline of Western Europe from the 7th century on, the era of Charlemagne marks a significant revival and turning point in the European history. So I wanted to compare and contrast medieval citizens within that time period. So basically you have your peasants and you have your nobles, okay? So daily life for peasants consisted of working the land, okay? Life was harsh. You had a limited diet and not a lot of comfort. You just woke up in the morning, you took care of your cattle, you took care of your farming so that you could live. Women were subordinate to men in both peasant and noble classes and were always inspected to ensure the smooth running of the household. They were the housewife. Children had a 50% survival rate beyond age 1 and began to contribute to family life around age 12, which they had to. They were poor. They had to help their family. 90% of the European population remained rural, and they gathered in small communities outside of the castles, which were often fortified by walls in response to, outside enemies, raids, or things like that. And to talking about the nobility or the nobles, the bond between the nobility and peasants were predominantly done through economic stability. The nobles, whose business it was to fight and rule over peasants, depended on the rents paid to them from the peasants in order to sustain their way of life. So peasants worked their bottoms off to pay their rent, feed their families so that they can give money to the nobility, which had power, and they had a more comforting life, and they were like the 10% of the population, as where the 90% were the peasants. Expectations of individuals in the medieval times. So we've talked about this a little bit, but the peasants, each peasant family had its own strips of land. However, the peasants worked cooperatively on tasks such as plowing and haying. They worked together. They were also experienced to build roads, clear forests, and work on other tasks as determined by the lord. The houses of medieval peasants were of poor quality compared to modern houses. In the feudal system, the nobility were generally those who held a land or office in exchange for allegiance and various mainly military services to a higher ranking nobleman or monarch. So, gives you a little bit of a broader picture of what their life was like a little bit and what was expected of them. Now let's switch it up and talk about modern America. So individuals of modern America, as all of us are a little bit familiar with it, we're expected to go to school, right? We're expected to go get an education. We're expected to be from a family, expected to go outside and play, not work when we're 12 years old. We're expected to go and find work later on in life. That could be anything. That could be a chef. That could be a nurse. That could be a teacher. That could be a cat sitter. That could be a road builder. You could be a farmer. There's so many different things that you can do. And we're expected to pay our taxes. We're expected to follow the law of the land and therefore be able to experience and enjoy the quote-unquote freedom of America. Now, a little bit like the medieval times, there are different classes. So we do have like middle class, upper class, lower class, and there are people who are poor and they're homeless. But generally, everyone is expected to have basic needs such as food, water, and shelter. Those are the very basic things that are generally on paper tried to be given to everyone in America. We have leaders and presidents rather than kings and nobles. We vote on things. It's a democracy. So that's a little bit of a difference between kings and nobles. And we aren't expected to plow the fields and produce our own food. Like, all my food comes from the grocery store. I don't go out and farm everything. That's very normal of modern Americans. As previously mentioned, there are millions of different types of jobs today. The family unit is also different. Like, it's not always a man and woman and 12 children, and the expectancy of children nowadays is a lot better than what it was in the medieval times. And women are seen as equal by law. We can own property, we can live out on our own, we can vote, all that fun stuff about being equal to everyone as a woman. So, options and choices. What were the options and choices of people in the medieval times? Not so great. Basically, whatever unit you were born in is the unit that you're going to die in. So if you're born into a noble family, as long as everything goes well politically and economically, you're probably going to stay there for the rest of your life. And that's how families grow into these different positions. As where if you're born into a peasant family, well, there's almost no chance for you to go up in the system. As where today, you could be born in a very, very poor home, go into the right field, release a cool song, write a nice book, whatever, and you could become a millionaire in 20 years. There's a lot of different options and choices nowadays, which I'm very grateful for. But man, the medieval times, not so great. You basically, it's whatever your father did or whatever your mother did, and that's what you would do later. So if your dad worked with iron, you're going to work with iron when you're older. If your dad was a farmer, you're going to be a farmer. And if you're a girl, you hope to get married to maybe a richer family and be a good housewife. Those were your options. Those were your options and choices. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.